The massive council chamber stretched up into darkness, its walls lined with glowing screens showing star maps and ship movements. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in rising tiers, their eyes fixed on the small group of humans standing in the center. Admiral James Walker tried not to show his amazement at the variety of species around him. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide, and a few seemed to float in special containers filled with strange gases. "You expect us to believe that your species is ready for full council membership." The words came from the Strongarm Empire's representative, a massive creature covered in natural armor plates. He stood nearly 12 feet tall, towering over Walker and his team. "Your ships are barely larger than our personal yachts." Walker kept his face neutral, though his hand tightened slightly on the data pad he held. "Size isn't everything, Ambassador. Our ships meet all technical requirements for space travel and defense." The chamber filled with rumbling laughter. Even the council president, a blue-skinned being with 4 arms, seemed amused. "Admiral Walker, please understand our concern. The smallest council memberships are at least 5 times the size of your largest vessels. How could you possibly defend your territory or contribute to council security?" Walker stepped forward, activating his presentation. Above the chamber floor, a hologram appeared showing Earth's latest destroyer-class ship. The Guardian class represents the latest in human engineering. While compact, it carries. "Compact," interrupted the Strongarm ambassador. "It's tiny. One of our cargo shuttles could accidentally crush it." More laughter echoed through the chamber. The council president raised 2 of their 4 hands for silence. "Admiral, we appreciate Earth's initiative in reaching out to the galactic community. However, we have standards. Your ships lack the necessary size for proper shield generators, weapon systems, and crew quarters. They simply cannot match council requirements." "If you would allow me to demonstrate," Walker began, but the Strongarm ambassador cut him off again. "Why waste more time? Look at their primitive designs. They still use chemical rockets for some operations. Their ships would fall apart in any real combat situation." Walker felt his jaw tighten. Earth's fleet might be smaller, but every ship represented decades of innovative engineering. The aliens were judging everything by size alone, ignoring the advanced AI systems, the revolutionary miniaturization technology, and the cutting-edge weapons packed into those tiny hulls. The council president spoke again, their tone diplomatic but firm. "We have reviewed Earth's application for full membership. While we welcome humanity to the galactic community, we cannot grant full status at this time. Instead, we offer provisional membership under the developing species category." A murmur of agreement ran through the chamber. Walker saw some representatives not even bothering to hide their smirks. His team stood silent behind him, but he could feel their frustration matching his own. "Developing species status comes with certain restrictions," the president continued. "Your ships will be limited to your home system and immediate neighboring sectors. For your own safety, of course. When your technology advances sufficiently." "You mean when we build oversized ships to match your outdated standards?" Walker's words cut through the chamber, sharper than he intended. Several representatives gasped at the interruption. The Strongarm ambassador's armor plates rattled with anger. "Watch your tone, human. Your species is lucky to receive any recognition at all. Perhaps spending a few decades as a protected developing race will teach you proper respect." Walker took a deep breath, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We accept the council's decision," he said carefully. "Earth will prove its worth in time." "Wonderful." The council president smiled, clearly happy to move past the awkward moment. "Welcome to the galactic community, humanity. We look forward to watching your development." As Walker and his team were escorted from the chamber, he caught fragments of conversations from the departing representatives. "Such tiny ships, like children playing with toys. At least they know their place now." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "Let them laugh. Let them mock Earth's tiny fleet. They had no idea what humanity's engineers had achieved with miniaturization and AI integration." Someday, probably sooner than anyone in that chamber expected, they would learn that bigger didn't always mean better. The real question was, would that lesson come peacefully, or would someone force humanity to demonstrate exactly what their small ships could do? 3 years passed, and nothing improved. If anything, things had gotten worse. Captain Emma Reynolds stood on the bridge of her patrol ship, watching the wreckage of another civilian transport drift through space. The ship's broken hull still glowed red in places from the attack. Her crew worked silently, documenting everything with grim efficiency. Fourth attack this month, her first officer reported, checking the data screens. Same pattern. Strongarm raiders hit them just outside the protected zone boundary, took everything valuable, and left the ship dead in space. Reynolds nodded, her face hard. Any casualties? No, thank goodness. The crew managed to reach the escape pods. Rescue ships picked them up an hour ago. At least there was that. But Reynolds knew it was only a matter of time before someone died. The Strongarm Empire's raiders were getting bolder, pushing closer to Earth's colonies with each attack. They knew exactly what they were doing, staying just outside the areas where Earth ships were allowed to patrol under their developing species status. Back on Earth, Admiral Walker stood before the Emergency Defense Council, his uniform crisp despite the late hour. The wall screens behind him showed a map of recent raids, red dots spreading like a disease across human space. "They're testing us," Walker said, pointing to the pattern. "The Strongarm Empire claims these are independent raiders, but the attacks are too organized. They're seeing how far they can push before we break the Council's restrictions." One of the Council members leaned forward. "And if we do break those restrictions, if we send our ships outside the permitted zones, then we lose our provisional status," Walker replied. "The Galactic Council would classify us as a rogue species. The Strongarm Empire would use that as an excuse for open war. And if we do nothing," Walker's jaw tightened, "then we show the galaxy a humanity can be pushed around. The raids will increase. Other species will start targeting our ships too. We'll lose everything we've built in the outer colonies." The council chamber fell silent. On the screens, another red dot appeared. Another attack. 2 days later, the Galactic Council chamber looked exactly as it had 3 years ago. But this time, Earth's diplomatic team came armed with evidence, records from dozens of attacks, testimony from ship captains, footage of Strongarm raiders in action. The council president watched the presentation with all 4 arms folded. "These are serious accusations," they said when it was finished. "However, the Strongarm Empire maintains these are the actions of independent criminals, without proof of direct involvement." Proof. The word burst from Walker before he could stop it. "We've shown you attack patterns that match Strongarm military tactics. Raiders using military-grade weapons, ships matching Strongarm designs." The Strongarm ambassador rose to his full height, armor plates gleaming. "Are you suggesting we cannot control our own technology? That we are responsible for every criminal who manages to steal our equipment?" His massive form towered over the human delegation. "Perhaps if your ships weren't so pathetically small, pirates would think twice before attacking them." Walker felt something snap inside him. 3 years of watching his people suffer while playing by rules designed to keep humanity weak. 3 years of diplomatic games while colonies struggled and ships burned. "Our ships," he said quietly, dangerously, "are exactly the size they need to be." The ambassador laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber. "Your toy fleet. Don't make me laugh, human. I've seen your largest vessel. It wouldn't survive 10 minutes against a proper warship." Walker stood straighter, meeting the ambassador's eyes. "Would you care to test that theory?" The chamber went silent. Even the ambassador seemed surprised by the direct challenge. The council president quickly intervened. "This is not the place for threats, Admiral Walker. Earth's concerns have been noted. We will investigate these incidents through proper channels. While more of our ships are attacked." Walker shook his head. "No. We've tried proper channels for 3 years. Now you'll see what humanity's toy fleet can really do. As Walker's team left the chamber, the ambassador's mocking voice followed them. Run back to your tiny ships, humans. Hide in your designated zones. It's all you're good for. Walker didn't respond, but in his mind, he was already composing the message that would change everything. Operation Hornet's Nest is now active. All ships, prepare for combat deployment. The galaxy had mocked humanity's small ships for too long. It was time to show them why size wasn't everything. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown to the galaxy at large, engineer Thomas Reed walked through rows of holographic displays. Each screen showed different parts of what the aliens mockingly called humanity's toy fleet. But Reed knew better. He'd spent the last decade making sure of it. Admiral Walker stood beside him, both men watching as the latest test results scrolled across the screens. "Will they be ready?" Walker asked. Reed nodded, zooming in on one particular ship design. "The Wasp-class destroyers are complete, all 20 of them." He smiled slightly, still small enough to make the Strongarm Empire laugh. "Until they stop laughing," Walker added. The engineer touched a control, and the hologram expanded to show the ship's interior. While alien vessels wasted enormous space on oversized corridors and needlessly large crew quarters, every inch of the Wasp class was carefully planned. AI systems handled most functions, allowing a crew of just 30 to operate a ship that alien species would staff with hundreds. The real breakthrough was the miniaturization of the fusion core, Reed explained, highlighting the ship's heart. "Everyone else builds bigger reactors for more power. We found a way to get more power from a smaller space." The hologram shifted, showing weapon systems that looked tiny compared to standard alien designs. But size was deceiving. Reed had spent years perfecting these systems, and the results were devastating. "Traditional thinking says bigger guns, bigger ships," Reed continued. "But that creates bigger targets. Our ships are faster, more maneuverable, and virtually impossible to hit with standard targeting systems." He paused, bringing up another diagram. "And then there's our point defense network." Walker watched as the simulation played out. A standard alien weapon fired at the small human ship, but before it could hit, dozens of tiny interceptors launched from hidden ports, destroying the incoming fire with precision that larger ships couldn't match. "The aliens think small ships can't have effective shields," Reed said, his voice filled with quiet pride. "They never considered using multiple small shield generators instead of one big one. Our overlapping shield grid is stronger than anything they have, and it regenerates faster too." In another part of the facility, teams of technicians worked on rows of actual ships. The vessels looked almost delicate compared to the massive alien warships, but their design had been tested and refined through thousands of simulations. "The best part," Reed said, leading Walker to a final display, "is that they still don't understand our AI integration." The screen showed the neural network that connected every system on a human ship. "Their eyes are basic automation. Ours think and adapt. Each ship learns from every engagement, sharing data with the entire fleet instantly." Walker studied the display. "And the new stealth systems." Reed's smile widened. "That's the cherry on top. Their sensors are calibrated for big ships. Our vessels are so small, most of their detection systems filter them out as background noise. Add our actual stealth technology, and we might as well be invisible." A technician approached with a datapad. Reed checked it and nodded. "Final tests are complete on the last batch of ships. All systems performing above expectations." Walker looked at the rows of tiny ships being prepared for combat. Each one packed more firepower than alien vessels 3 times their size, protected by defenses that would surprise anyone who thought bigger meant better. "How many ships total?" Walker asked. 200 Wasp-class destroyers, 40 Hornet-class cruisers, and 10 Yellow Jacket command ships," Reed replied. "All hiding in plain sight because everyone thinks they're too small to be threatening." Walker remembered the mockery in the council chamber, the dismissive laughter of the strong-arm ambassador. They think we've been falling behind, struggling to match their technology. Instead, we've been leapfrogging it. Reed finished. They're still building bigger ships with bigger guns. We've made something better. An alarm sounded. Another attack on a human colony. But this time, Earth was ready. Walker touched his communicator. All ships, battle stations. Operation Hornet's Nest begins in 6 hours. Reed watched the crews rushing to their ships, each vessel small but deadly. You know what they say about picking on someone your own size? He mused. Walker nodded. Time to show them why they should have been worried about someone smaller. The Strongarm battle fleet appeared above Neptune colony like a wall of metal. 12 massive warships, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever built, moved into attack formation. Their weapons ports glowed with charged energy, ready to rain destruction on the human settlement below. On the bridge of his flagship, the Strongarm commander smiled. Any sign of human defenders? A few small ships near the colony, his sensor officer reported. They appear to be running away. The commander laughed. As expected, begin the attack. Show these primitives what real warships can do. But on the bridge of her small ship, Captain Emma Reynolds wasn't running away. She was getting into position. All WASP squadrons, report ready, she ordered quietly. WASP Squad 1, ready. WASP Squad 2, ready. WASP Squad 3, ready. 30 tiny ships, hidden against Neptune's rings, waited for her command. The Strongarm fleet had never bothered to scan the rings carefully. Why would they? Nothing that small could be a threat. The first Strongarm ship fired at the colony, but its shot never arrived. Tiny points of light flashed in space, and the massive energy beam disappeared. What was that? The Strongarm commander demanded. Before his crew could answer, Reynolds gave her order. All ships, attack pattern Delta. Show them what we can do. The human ships moved like angry wasps, darting out from their hiding places. They were so fast that the Strongarm targeting systems couldn't lock onto them. Their small size, combined with their advanced stealth systems, made them nearly invisible to the alien sensors. Enemy ships approaching. The Strongarm sensor officer shouted. They're everywhere. Impossible, the commander growled. They're too small to have proper weapons. Destroy them. The massive Strongarm ships fired their main guns, but the human vessels danced between the shots, their overlapping shield grids flickering as they absorbed any near misses. Then they returned fire. From dozens of points around the Strongarm fleet, precision beam weapons struck with surgical accuracy. The human ships targeted engine ports, weapon systems, and sensor arrays. Each shot was perfect, guided by AI systems that learned and adapted with every second of combat. Shields failing on multiple ships. The Strongarm tactical officer reported, panic in his voice. Their weapons, they're cutting through our defenses like they're not even there. The commander stared in disbelief as 3 of his ships lost power, their massive hulls dark and dead in space. The human vessels moved too fast to track, striking from all angles. His gunners couldn't hit them. His sensors couldn't lock onto them. It was like fighting ghosts. Launch fighters, he ordered. They can't dodge everything. Hundreds of Strongarm fighters poured from the carrier ships. But that's when Reynolds revealed her fleet's next surprise. The human ship's point defense networks activated, creating a web of interceptor fire that shredded the incoming fighters. Squad 2, take out their carrier bays, Reynolds commanded. Squad 3, disable their engines. Squad 1, with me. We're going for their command ship. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, their AI networks sharing data and adapting strategies in real time. More Strongarm ships went dark, their massive bulk now nothing but expensive obstacles in space. This is impossible, the Strongarm commander whispered, watching his mighty fleet fall to ships he could barely see on his screens. They're too small. They can't be this powerful. His ship rocked as precision strikes disabled his engines and weapons. On his main screen, a transmission appeared. Captain Reynolds looked at him calmly. "Size isn't everything, Commander," she said. "Your ships are big enough to blot out the sun. Ours are small enough to slip through your defenses and strike exactly where we want. Would you like to surrender now, or should we demonstrate more of our tiny fleet's capabilities?" Around his crippled flagship, the remains of his fleet drifted powerless. 12 mighty warships, defeated in less than an hour by vessels they had dismissed as toys. The commander closed his eyes. We surrender." As Reynolds' ships secured the Strongarm fleet, she sent a message to Earth. "First engagement complete. Enemy fleet neutralized. 0 casualties on our side." The Strongarm Empire just learned that sometimes the smallest wasp has the deadliest sting. Operation Hornet's Nest entered its second phase exactly 1 week after the Neptune colony battle. While the Strongarm Empire was still trying to understand how they lost 12 warships to tiny human vessels, Admiral Walker launched his master plan. The Strongarm homeworld hung in space like a jewel, protected by the largest defense network in the galaxy. Massive space stations and hundreds of warships formed a barrier that no enemy had ever breached. The Strongarm Emperor watched from his palace as status reports came in from across his empire. "Still no sign of the human fleet, Emperor," his general reported. "Our forces are on high alert, but their ships are too small to reach us here. They would run out of fuel long before." A red alert suddenly blared through the command center. Warning lights flashed on every screen. "What's happening?" the Emperor demanded. "Impossible." The general stared at his displays. "Enemy ships, inside our defense grid." "But how?" "Nothing could slip through our sensor net." In the void of space, 200 human ships appeared as if from nowhere. They had spent days sneaking through the Strongarm defenses, their small size and advanced stealth systems making them invisible to the oversized sensor arrays designed to spot capital ships. Admiral Walker's voice crackled across all Strongarm communications channels. "This is Earth Fleet Command to Strongarm Empire. Your defense grid has been compromised. Our ships now have targeting solutions on every major military installation in your capital system." The Emperor watched in horror as human vessels, barely visible on his screens, took up perfect attack positions around his fleet. The massive Strongarm ships tried to target them, but the humans moved too fast, darting between the gaps in their formation. "You see," Walker continued, "while you were building bigger ships and stronger weapons, we learned to think differently. Your sensors are calibrated for large vessels. Your weapons are designed to hit big targets. Your entire strategy is based on overwhelming force." As if to demonstrate his point, a squadron of Wasp-class destroyers danced through the Strongarm formation, disabling weapon systems with surgical precision. The giant alien ships couldn't track them, couldn't hit them, couldn't stop them. "But space is vast," Walker said. "And in all that vastness, you never stopped to consider that smaller might be better. That efficiency might trump raw power." The general frantically ordered his ships to fire, but the human vessels were already inside their minimum targeting range. The mighty Strongarm defense fleet had become nothing more than a collection of expensive targets. "Your ships are impressive," Walker admitted. "They're huge, powerful, and very intimidating. But they're also slow, easy to hit, and impossible to hide. Our entire fleet could land on one of your cruisers with room to spare. And that's exactly why we're winning." Across the system, human ships struck with perfect coordination. Their AI networks adapted faster than any organic crew could respond. Their overlapping shields brushed off desperate counterattacks. Their miniaturized weapons found weak points that larger ships couldn't target. 70% of our defense grid is disabled," an officer reported to the Emperor. "They're not destroying our ships. They're just shutting them down. We can't fight back." The Emperor watched as another defensive station went dark, its massive bulk now useless in space. These humans and their tiny ships had done the impossible. They had reached the heart of his empire and proved that all his mighty defenses meant nothing. Final warning, Walker announced. You can surrender now, or we can demonstrate what our ships can do when we're not being nice. Your defense grid is down. Your fleet is disabled. Your capital is defenseless, all because you thought size was all that mattered. In his palace, the emperor looked at the scattered remains of his once mighty fleet, the finest warships in the galaxy, brought low by vessels so small they had once been dismissed as toys. Open a channel, he ordered quietly. Tell them we're ready to discuss terms. As the emperor prepared to surrender, human ships continued their patrol through his capital system, a swarm of deadly wasps that had brought down a giant. The galaxy would never be the same, and the age of the massive warship was coming to an end. News of the Strongarm Empire's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the Great Council chamber, representatives from hundreds of species watched in stunned silence as engineer Thomas Reed presented humanity's ship design philosophy. The problem, Reed explained, standing confidently where they had once mocked him, wasn't that our ships were too small. The problem was that everyone else's ships were too big. He gestured to the hologram floating above the chamber floor. It showed a standard alien battleship next to a human destroyer. The size difference was dramatic. Look at the waste, Reed continued. Massive corridors that serve no purpose. Huge spaces between systems that only make ships vulnerable. Giant engine rooms that could be 1/10 the size with proper miniaturization. The council president leaned forward, all four arms resting on their desk. But surely larger ships can carry more weapons, better shields. Reed smiled. That's what everyone thought. But let me show you something interesting. He changed the display to show power output readings. Our smaller fusion cores produce more energy than cores 5 times their size. Why? Because we focused on efficiency instead of raw size. In the audience, representatives from smaller, less powerful species paid close attention. They had always struggled to compete with the bigger powers, unable to match their massive fleets. But the construction costs, one delegate began, are much lower, Reed finished. We can build 5 ships for the same resources you use on one. Each of those ships is faster, harder to hit, and just as powerful. And because they're smaller, they're harder to detect. The Strongarm ambassador, much less confident than before, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. This is all very impressive, but nothing, a new voice called out. A representative from a species known as the Drift Runners stood up. They were one of the smallest spacefaring races, often ignored by the larger powers. We've reviewed the battle footage, the Drift Runner said. Human ships slipped through the strongest defense grid in the galaxy. They disabled a fleet 10 times their size without a single casualty. And they did it with ships smaller than our cargo vessels. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. Other smaller species began to speak up, asking questions about human technology, requesting partnerships and trade deals. Reed brought up another display, this one showing the internal layout of a Wasp-class destroyer. The real breakthrough was thinking differently about space itself. The void between stars is vast. In all that emptiness, why build ships so big they can be seen and targeted from millions of miles away? The council chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives huddled in groups, talking excitedly about the possibilities. The larger powers looked worried. Their advantage of size and brute force was disappearing. We're already getting requests for technology sharing. Admiral Walker reported from his position near the back of the chamber. 15 species want to start joint development programs. Reed nodded, watching as more delegates approached Earth's diplomatic team. The galaxy's changing. The big powers can't bully the smaller species anymore. Not when those small ships might be carrying advanced weapons and AI systems. Speaking of which, Walker said quietly, the Drift Runners want to be our first full military alliance. Their entire species specializes in operating in tight spaces. Imagine what they could do with our technology. In the center of the chamber, the council president called for order. Given recent events, the Council will need to revise its membership criteria. It seems our previous assumptions about military capability were flawed. Reed packed up his presentation as the chamber buzzed with excitement. The old power structure was crumbling. Species that had been dismissed as too small or too weak were suddenly seeing new possibilities. "Funny thing about revolutions," he said to Walker as they left the chamber. "Sometimes the biggest changes come in the smallest packages." Behind them, the galaxy's future was already taking shape. The age of the massive warship was over. The era of efficiency, innovation, and small ships had begun. And humanity, once mocked for their tiny fleet, was leading the way. 1 year after the Strongarm Empire's surrender, the galaxy looked very different. Admiral Walker stood on the observation deck of Earth's new space station, watching ships come and go through the busy trading lanes. Large and small vessels flew together, but the trend was clear. The newer ships were all smaller, sleeker, and more efficient. "Quite a change from last year," Captain Emma Reynolds said, joining him at the window. Her promotion ceremony had just finished, making her the youngest fleet commander in Earth's history. "Hard to believe they used to laugh at our small ships," Walker replied, gesturing to a newly arrived diplomatic vessel. It was a Strongarm design, but half the size of their old warships. "Now everyone's rebuilding their fleets to match our style." The station's AI announced new arrivals, a group of drift runner ships, each one barely larger than a shuttle, but packed with advanced technology. They moved with incredible precision, their crews already masters of the new human-inspired designs. "The training program is going well?" Walker asked. Reynolds nodded. "Better than expected. 20 species now have joint defense agreements with us. The drift runners are the best students. Their natural talent for small ship operations makes them perfect partners." They watched as a massive old-style cargo ship lumbered past, followed by a group of new human-designed freighters. The new ships were a quarter of the size but carried more cargo, their efficient designs making the older vessel look wasteful and outdated. In his engineering lab below the station, Thomas Reed reviewed design updates with a team of alien engineers. The room's holographic displays showed dozens of ship designs, each one combining human efficiency with unique features from different species. The key was breaking old habits, Reed explained to a junior engineer from the former Strongarm Empire. "Your people built big ships because that's what you'd always done. But look here." He highlighted a new design. "By using your advanced armor technology at our scale, we've created something entirely new." The young engineer nodded eagerly. The defeat of his empire had opened many eyes, showing that progress meant questioning old assumptions. Now, former enemies worked together, combining their knowledge in ways that benefited everyone. On the station's main concourse, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for the signing of the new space treaty. The document officially ended the era of power based on ship size and established new rules for peaceful cooperation. The Strongarm Emperor, now more of a cultural leader than a warlord, stepped up to sign. "A year ago, I would have called this impossible," he admitted. "We thought bigger meant better. We were wrong." Walker watched from the sidelines as more leaders signed. The council president, who had once dismissed Earth's fleet as primitive, now wore a small pin showing crossed human and alien ships, a symbol of the new cooperation. "You know what the best part is," Reynolds said quietly to Walker. "The pirates and raiders are nearly gone. Hard to ambush a ship when you don't know if that tiny transport is actually carrying advanced weapons and shields." Reed joined them, holding a data pad with the latest fleet reports. "And the resources we're saving. The smaller ships use less fuel, need fewer crew, cost less to build. The galaxy's entering a new golden age of exploration and trade." Through the window, they watched a fleet training exercise. Ships from 6 different species moved in perfect formation, their sizes matched to their roles rather than their builders' egos. The old practice of measuring power by ship size was dead. "We've got applications from 30 more worlds wanting to join the Defense Alliance," Reynolds reported. Everyone wants to learn the human way of shipbuilding. Walker smiled, remembering the mockery in the council chamber years ago. Funny how things work out. They laughed at our tiny fleet. Until they saw what humanity could really do. Reed finished. Sometimes the biggest changes come in the smallest packages. Reynolds completed the now famous phrase. As they watched the combined fleet exercise, a message flashed on nearby screens. Another group of worlds was requesting membership in the new alliance. The age of cooperation had begun, and it all started because humanity refused to believe that bigger meant better. In the space above them, large and small ships flew together. But the future was clear. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never judge a species by the size of its ships, especially if that species is human.